Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about creating an effective resume and cover letter. My name is Charles Kelly with Career Services here at the Chicago School, and we're going to touch on resume writing and cover letter writing. So what is a resume? A resume is, one, the start to a successful job/internship search. This is a document that will be used to market your skills and abilities, to showcase any of the talents that you have, and as it is a way for you to communicate to an employer. This document can be requested in any field. So a resume, in essence, is the universal document that is used here in the United States. You may have heard of a CV, a curriculum vitae, or a vita. That is something that is used worldwide, primarily in academic settings. But for you and for the purpose of this workshop, we're going to only discuss the resume. Here is an example of a resume. What's most important here is that I want you to see the structure of the document. A resume can be formatted in various ways, but just for the sake of this presentation, I want you to see how this document is structured, looking at the headings, looking at the header with your name and address where it's placed, and looking at the document and seeing that it's consistent looking. The bullet points that are used, the way that it looks for someone to read and capture the message of what you're sending to them. It's just a simple, easy document. It does not have to be fancy at all. So the overview of the resume. The resume is to help employers and candidates during the job search. So for the candidate, the resume is your first impression. It's to showcase your skills and knowledge. It's your marketing document that you're using. For the employer, it helps for them to screen candidates, identify professional skills and accomplishments, but I think it's more important for creating the emphasis of the interview. So it's important that the information you put on the resume is something that you can tell a story about, because questions can be formulated based on what you have on your resume. So formatting tips. What you see here is essentially the second page of a resume. A resume should not be longer than 2 pages. You want to not have 2 pages if you don't have 2 pages worth of information that is relevant to the position, but we'll get into that later. But what you see as far as the formatting is that the margin from left to right is 1-inch margin on each side. You want to utilize bullet points. At least this is what I recommend. It makes the document easier to read. And when you think about font size, you don't want it smaller than 10, and you don't want it larger than 12. And then consider what font style you're using as well. You don't want anything that is too fancy. You want it to be universal, something like Times New Roman. And then what you see circled here on the top of the document is a header. So this is for the reader. If someone printed out the document, just for standard formatting, you want to have a page number and maybe your name on the top of the document. Okay, here are some resume rules. The main thing that I like to focus on when I'm reviewing resumes is consistency. Easier to read. It's easy to identify what you want the reader to know. So for example, if you are going to indicate the date ranges in which you were working or in your education or whatever experience, decide to choose if you're going to present just the year of when you have this experience, the month or year if you want to spell it out, like for here, like for example here, June 2016, or do you want to write the numeric version of June 2016, but just be consistent throughout the document. If you're going to indicate your experience in education, are you going to spell out the complete name of your degree, or are you going to put the initials? And font size and style should be consistent throughout the document as well. Makes it easier to read. When you are organizing your resume, you want to list the most recent experience first, which is called the reverse chronological order. So most recent first, and second, third, and so on underneath. So no matter if you have different sections in a resume, you still want that experience that represents that section to be the most recent experience listed first. When you are creating the content, so this is you describing your experiences, you want to bullet point, but then you also want to put action to your task. So what tends to happen in resumes that I review, I'll either see someone say responsible for or duties consisted of. What you want to do is just begin with an action verb. So here are just some sample words here. So looking at the word facilitate, access, or assessed, or supervise. So if you are managing people in your role, you want to say you supervised or you managed or you coordinated whatever it was that you were doing. This gives about to the reader the skill sets that you have in the task in which you performed. Here is an example of a list of action verbs. This is something that you can find online. As you can see, a category for management skills. Here are a list of action verbs that one could use to define what they've done in their role. And also, when you're considering creating effective content, create accomplishment statements to focus on the skill sets and the experiences that you have. You want to consider how you are displaying your experience. So using an example of what I have here, you want to consider who did you work with, what did you work with them on, and why was it important, or what was the task. So if we're looking at underneath where it says always try to answer the why in your statement, when I'm reviewing resumes and I see someone put a quick bullet that says supervise team, well, the reader isn't truly understanding what skill set you use in supervising a team. So what actually did you do in supervising a team? Did you do some coaching? Was it some sort of mentoring? Was it some sort of task-driven management style or directive that you use? So in looking at these examples, this first bullet indicates work directly with primary investigator. That's pretty vague. So why? And then the next bullet says work directly with primary investigator to implement new treatment protocol for depression into 5 hospital-affiliated primary care clinics. The second bullet demonstrates a lot more skill sets in your task, and this is what you want to aim for. Verb tense. So when you are writing your descriptions and sharing your experiences, if this is just simply saying for past experiences, use a past tense verb when describing. So if you you are a manager, you would say managed or coordinated. So for present tense, use a present tense verb. So sometimes I receive this question of what if I don't have any relevant experience? This is when you want to look at focusing on your transferable soft skills, and this could be demonstrated in your description of your task that you do on a daily basis. So if you're in a position where you have these daily tasks, but if you were in a position where you were a senior, let's say if you were a senior associate, although you didn't have a title of senior associate, but you had senior associate kind of task where if a new employee was hired, you did some onboarding, some training, some development, some coaching, some mentoring. You want to utilize some of the words that are the buzzwords to identify what are some of these transferable skills in the tasks that you performed. And so this is what this is saying. So looking at this is just an example of some some bulleted areas, but at the same time, this is listed here based on some data that was retrieved from employers of what are some of the soft skills that are most important in the task in which they are promoting or advertising for the positions available at their companies. And these were some of the skill sets, soft skills that they would want someone to have to be able to demonstrate in the working environment. So in a resume, you can have multiple sections. These sections are used to identify key or core areas of your experiences. So here's just a list of some of these sections, and there are many more. You can be very creative with your section headings, but this is sort of a standard approach to some of the resume sections. So we're going to sort of break down each one of these sections so you can have a better understanding of what it means to fill this section out. So in the very top of your resume, you're going to indicate your contact information. This is where you're going to include your name. In some instances, or most instances, you're going to put your address, but there are individuals who may not want to list their address, and that's optional. Some people just list their city, state. You want to indicate a phone number, how you can be reached, an email, contact. In some instances, people will put their LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn page, there's a hyperlink that is directed, that goes right to your page. So some people will put that on there as well if they want to show their overall skill sets and their experiences through LinkedIn. In some instances, in the beginning portion of a resume, and this is more reserved to someone who has, I would say, over 3 years of experience, of core experience in an area of their experience. So, for example, myself, I have over 12 years of experience in higher education. So if I was applying to a position in higher education and I want to demonstrate and give a summary of my experience, I would focus on my 12 years of experience in higher education and what functional areas I have expertise in. So this is just an example of once you are able to identify if you have a core skill set with a number of years of experience and is related to the positions that you're applying to, this is a way you can summarize your experiences. You're going to also indicate where you were educated. And this is some information that you will want to indicate in there, but the primary information is where did you go to school, the full name, city, state where it was located, your degree. You can spell it out, put the initials, but put a concentration if you have that, or specialization, or if you had a double major. Right now, if you're being currently in school, you would indicate your start date to present, and then you can indicate when you have an expected graduation or completion date. You can include a GPA, but it is just recommended that if you're going to place a GPA, place it if it's 3.5 or higher, or if an employer is asking for you to indicate a GPA, which it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to place it on there because they're requesting it. Okay? So now your professional experience. This is under the umbrella of experience as full and part-time. It's going to be job-related positions. You're going to indicate where you worked, so the employer, the city, state, your job title, the dates in which you've worked, and then you're going to describe what it is that you do in bullet form. Okay? In some instances, like I said, you can be creative with your titles. So if you want to change it to something like relevant experience, or if you want to, and this is probably jobs that are more focused on an area which you're interested in. So if currently you're working somewhere that isn't relevant, but let's say within the past 3 years you had 2 positions that are relevant, but you want to showcase that first, you could title it relevant experience or whatever area of interest you have, and just say this is that type of experience, and then indicate that work underneath it. For those who have held leadership roles and had titles and actually duties in those roles, you could indicate that and by calling a section leadership experience, or if there's a combination of leadership and community service, you can do a combination title section heading and indicate where you did, where you worked, what was your title, the dates, and what was your actual role, your description. Professional development. This is if you attended workshops, seminars, colloquias, things that identify that you invested in your profession. You've learned a new skill set in your trade. The more recent, the better if you're going to identify and list this information. But it could be helpful for you, especially if you don't have applied working experience, but you attended workshops where you may have received a certificate or something like that. You can indicate that information too. If you are active or joining a professional organization, you want to identify that. If you play an active role in the organization, either on committees or have been active in the conferences, you can indicate that information too. But listing professional organizations is something that you should do if you are a member. You can list any honors or awards. This is primarily good for newer students who may not have a lot of work experience but excelled in their academics, and especially if it's relevant and as high achieving, you could indicate some of this information in your resume. You would want to list technology or language skills. I think this is important. For language skills, you want to list what the language is and the fluency level in either conversational or written or writing, or things written, writing, verbal communication. You want to list this level of fluency. For technology, you want to list the simple stuff like the Microsoft Office products. But if you know any other statistical software or databases, or if you worked in specific databases at one of your jobs, list the name of what that was. That's helpful because if you're working in the similar industry, although a database can be called something different, it could work and function the same or similar. That's a bonus for an employer because that's one less thing they have to train you on, which makes you qualify for a position for an interview. So you want to list this information here. Now, when you're listing your information in your resume, this goes for when you list your job descriptions, your bullets to describe what your experience is, as well as how you list the information in your resume where you place it. You want to list in the order of importance. So if we talk about just for the job descriptions, if you had 5 bullets that describe what you've done and you're applying to a position and they're looking for certain skill sets, but the skill sets they're looking for you have listed as 3, 4, and 5 in your order of bullets. If you're thinking of someone reviewing a resume, they could skip over that. They could assume the first 2 is what's important to them. If they don't see that important information first, they can miss over it. So you want to put what's important first. So as someone is scanning over a document, reading a document, they can see the most important information. Okay. What you want to avoid in creating a resume. It doesn't have to be fancy. So you don't want to put clip arts, borders, fancy lettering, a logo. You don't need to put this type of information on a resume. Keep the font styles simple. Try not to use italics and bold all over the document. Just keep it really simple and clean looking. Don't add any personal names or information, or don't even add any personal information to your document. Okay? So if you have any questions about resume writing, you feel free to contact Career Services. If you have any questions, then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have with the resume writing. So we're going to get into the cover letter writing. Okay, now with the cover letter, your cover letter is an introduction. Okay, it's different from a resume. The tone, the message is different from a resume. So it is an introduction, who you are and how you can help an organization. Why are you the best candidate? And it's an opportunity to show off your skills and unique qualities in this letter form. Okay. I like to focus on keeping your letter writing simple. You want it to be one page. Okay. Usually, if cover letters are longer than one page, that is most likely an employer guiding you on what you should write on. It's usually that guidance is for writing or creating a writing sample. So then that's a possibility you may have a longer cover letter, but it really should only be one page. In the structure of the cover letter, the header that you have on your resume, you basically on a blank piece of paper want to copy and paste that header. So your name, address, that information, that's what makes the resume and the cover letter match. That's your header at the top. And usually you're writing sort of this memo style. So on the left-hand side, after you tab down or enter twice, you can put the date, the company address, who you're writing to. This is the information that you will put there. And then underneath that, dear whoever you're writing to. So if you have a name, you put dear to that person. If you don't have a name, you can use something general like hiring manager, internship supervisor, whatever name you feel that is applicable to the position you're applying to. Okay? All right, so basic structure. I like to focus on a 3-paragraph model, okay? But what's important before you construct your letter is that you want to make sure that you're very familiar with the organization and the job. So you want to read over the job description. That's going to be very important to you. And you want to familiarize yourself with the organization, okay? So in a job description, you may want to highlight what you feel are the most important aspects in this job that they're marketing to you as an applicant, okay? Once you highlight that information, put a line under it, use a highlighter, highlight it. What you're essentially going to do is write based on that information, and we'll get into that. So you're going to create this opening paragraph, so 3-paragraph model having an open paragraph. One of the first things that you really want to write, this here on the slide is telling you the premise of the first paragraph. Why am I writing to you? So discuss why you are interested in this position or the organization, but be sure to research the organization prior to writing this letter. So in your first paragraph, you're initially writing, I am writing, or I am applying to XYZ position with ABC company. So you're letting them know what position you're applying to with their company. Then you want to start to write about something about you. I am a current student in XYZ program. You can talk about that you have an interest or a career goal in XYZ, or you just have an interest in what you're interested in. Then you want to round out the paragraph by mentioning something about the organization. Why are you interested in the organization? Why are you interested in this position? Why are you interested in this profession for this position? You want to, that's your opening paragraph. So what are you applying to? I would tell them something about you and why are you interested in an organization or a position. Okay. Here's an example of a first paragraph. So I'm not going to read through this, but it's something that you can look through and read over this and you'll see what's important. But those highlights are in this first paragraph. Second paragraph, this is defined as the meat and potatoes. So what you highlighted on the job description is essentially what you're writing on. So this is answering the question, why should I hire you? Well, you've just highlighted what's important. Now what you're saying is, here's my experiences as it relates to what is highlighted. This is the only thing that you're writing on in the second paragraph. If you do not have work experience based on the highlighted information, have you done a school project? Do you understand the concept? Although you haven't applied it in work, talk about how you understand the concept of the task. Give the reader some experience or knowledge that you have on what's important based on what you highlighted in the position. And this is the only thing you're writing. What tends to happen when people are writing too much information in a cover letter is that they're so proud of their experiences that they put it in there as if the reader finds that what they've done is going to be related to what they're asking for you to do in the role of the position. Well, what tends to happen is that becomes what is called fluff. You're just putting information in there. But if you stay focused on what you're writing on based on the job description, you hit the mark. Okay? So, so consider that when you're writing the second paragraph. Here's an example of that here. There could be more added here, but you will see that there are a couple of sentences that identify why they're interested. Here's a skill set that I have and why it relates to this organization. Okay. And then the very easy, simple third paragraph or third section is your closing. So you're basically saying thank you. You may even reiterate a final thought. You know, you might simply say something like, I really feel that this is a good fit and this is why. You will request further action. So thank you for your time. I really look forward to an opportunity to schedule an interview with you. Here's my contact information if you have any questions or if you're ready to schedule a meeting time. That's what you're putting in the last paragraph or third section. Here's an example of that. And then overall, that is writing a cover letter. Okay. Here's just some editing tips. Avoid starting every sentence with a personal pronoun. Use an active voice, not passive words such as believe, think, feel, might, etc. The pitfalls you want to avoid. One of the pitfalls, don't assume that the reader will have read or will read your resume or your cover letter. Like read it through thoroughly. So although you're taking the opportunity to do it what I consider a more effective way of writing a cover letter or a more effective way of writing a resume, don't assume that the reader is reading it with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to use the documents what's best fit for them. But I'm here to advise you on the approach that you should take when you're writing your documents, just in case. Okay? Don't let your cover letter become your second resume. One of the mistakes that people make when they write a cover letter is if you look at their resume, they may say, I worked at Nike, #1, I worked at Puma, #2, and I worked at Reebok, #3, whatever the job titles were. When they write their letters, they're saying their experiences in the same order. And you don't want to do that. You only want to point out what action items or skills that you've used in a place of employment as it relates to the job. So for example, you might say, while working at Nike, I served as whatever and I did these things, right? But then you might put down experience from Puma and Reebok, but instead of saying while working at Puma and Reebok, you might just simply say, I have additional experience where I've done what you did at Puma and what you did at Reebok, but you don't say that you worked there. You just say what the task was and what you did. And that's how you're writing your letter. So it, in essence, won't read exactly like a resume. It will just simply say, here are some of the experiences that I've had overall, okay? And tailor your letter to the employer. That's why I mentioned highlighting the experiences or highlighting the job duties and looking at your experiences and catering that letter to the employer or catering your resume to an employer, okay? Thank you all for attending this workshop. Here's information in career services. We do review resumes and cover letters. So if you have questions or if you want more information, feel free to contact us and we will be happy to assist you. Thank you very much for your time.